Meant for Me, Episode 60, Living with a House Full of Animals. Hey Magical Misfits, it's Kate and Ivy, and welcome back to Atonement for Me. When I began this journey with my podcast, it was just me and Vader, and I have only ever lived in a house with usually a single pet. I've been in short stints of places where there were multiple animals, but for the majority of my life, it was just me and my singular pet. Now I am living with a house full of animals. And even though we don't have Vader anymore, that doesn't mean that our house isn't absolutely insane. We have 4 dogs, so we have 4 pit bulls and a cat. And growing up, I always wanted a pit bull, especially a male pit bull, because they were banned in Ontario and they weren't something that I got to interact with or ever see, and pretty much until I was an adult. But I really, really wanted one as a kid because they had these goofy little smiles. And now the house is full of them. The reason we have the youngest one, Hippo, is because when we found out that Vader was on his way out, our youngest at the time, Medusa, was going to have a really, really hard time without her best friend Vader. And Donald also knew that I probably wasn't going to be able to cope so well without a buddy. So now we have Hippo, who is the smallest of our pit bulls. His actual name is Liberace, but he looked like a little house hippo, and he's a little gray, and he gets his nose into everything, so that became Hipperace, which became Hippo. And he is the happiest dog you've ever seen. And I know happy animals, and obviously if you met Vader, he was a very happy dog, but he has nothing on this little critter who is just this little ball of joy. He is actually a ball of love and vibrating joy all the time, because he is so happy to see everyone and everything. And the thing that makes him happiest in the world is his little chew toy, which he has to put in your face to make sure that you've seen, because he loves it. And that's what Vader showed him to do. So now he has to do it to everyone. So we have a house full of characters. They all have their very distinct personalities. Poopy and Cray, who are the oldest, they're usually chilling with Malik. They don't really get along too well with the younger ones, but Deucey or Medusa or Deuce Deuce and Goose and Hippo are usually with me and Donald. And Deucey is definitely a pandemic puppy. She's gotten better, much better throughout the months, but she was afraid of everything. A leaf could blow on her nose and she would freak out, and she would need to hide under the bed for a very long time. And her security blanket was kind of Vader, because she would go screaming at something in the kitchen that was imaginary, and Vader would just come huffling in and be like, "Oh, what's going on?" And if nothing was there, he just felt so proud of himself. "I did good. I scared it away." And she would come out from behind him or under him and make sure that the coast was clear. So along with 4 dogs running around, the cat also scurries around. you see him sometimes when he wants to. He is the most ninja of cats. He will just teleport anywhere. And the problem is constantly tripping over four-legged critters, particularly in the kitchen, because everybody is so happy and wants to be around everybody all the time. It's always a massive tangle in between your legs. And sometimes people will be like, oh, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And I'll be like, oh, great, I'll be ready in like 10 minutes. And that turns to 15 because you're trying to go from A to B is blocked by obstacles. So it's kind of like a video game to get through the house because you have certain dogs who are going to be obstacles along the way. So it keeps everything moving at a very strange pace, but it also keeps the house a little bit more scheduled regularly. Otherwise, being in a pandemic, we would be kind of just floating around, not really bothering with day or night schedule. And I have mentioned before that that really helps me stay on track. So I find that having dogs and having that schedule and that flow and for being forced into that schedule and flow really helps to keep me afloat, because I don't know what I would do without having animals or an animal around. Because sometimes when you're living with anxiety, your brain goes 3,000 miles a minute, and it's really difficult to bring yourself back into the present and to ground yourself. And I find that having animals really helps me physically ground myself and be a little bit more present and be in a moment, because they're just looking at you and they don't care about all the other things that are going on. They don't understand those things. They understand what is here and now, and you're looking at them and they have a toy or they're just chilling with you. And that's pretty much all I need to do in that moment, even though my brain is telling me you should be doing everything all the time. So yes, it adds to a whole bunch of stress in a variety of different ways, but it's the same way as having a house full of people. There's going to be characters, there's going to be special things that you need to make accommodations for along the way, but if it's your family, you just make it work. You come up with a system that kind of works for everybody, and you kind of go along with it. So yeah, there's times where I wake up and I haven't had a lot of sleep because the two puppies have decided to sleep horizontally in the bed, or Hippo's probably worst fault is he is the smelliest dog I have ever come across. And the problem is when he's happy, he farts, because he just gets so happy, he explodes. So he'll start wiggling, and then he'll start farting, and then he'll start hiccuping, and then he'll just have to have a sit down and just shake to himself because he's so worked up. I don't mind the hiccuping, but it's noxious. So things are never dull here. And I was always scared of what having another pet would be like past Vader, or what it would be like to have Vader and another dog. But when Vader was here, he loved the puppies, and he was so excited to finally have his own puppies. It's something that he'd always wanted. You could tell, because he always wanted to play with puppies. And they really did love him. So it's definitely been hard having this formed pack and then having a member missing. But it's still a fun house, and I just can't imagine it any other way. And that's the tea.